Well, anyhow, the cost.
Oh, what does it cost?
You were going to ask me how much it costs to keep them connected.
That's right.
And I was going to tell you, well, if a family lives 100 miles from the prison, that's an average of $80 a week.
Oh, yeah. That adds up.
No,
that adds up.
No, I'm sorry, a day. Sorry, my bad. Even I'm reading it wrong. $80 a day. And if you want to have them come every week, that would be $320.
What are there other ways to visit?
There's video visits. They cost $5.88 for 28
Video
minutes.
visits cost?
$5.88 for 28 minutes. So that would be almost like $25 a week.
And phone calls cost money, right?
Yeah,
well,
nine,
right?
9 cents a minute. 9 cents a minute. So it definitely adds
Just
up.
to stay connected.
Yep. The average pay for the moms inside is about $55 a month, and that's like middle of the road average.
So what, do you have to choose between buying tampons and making a phone call to your kids?
Pretty much, but that's where FPP definitely comes in because they help offset that cost.
So we would
for
like
moms
to
and
give a
kids.
big thank you to the YWCA of Greater Portland for their support and continued support
Yeah.
for the Family Preservation Project.
Yeah. Yes. And we'll let the panelists take it away. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nadia, and I am so honored to be here. It's been such a powerful night, and I'm so grateful that so many of you are still here. In a moment, we're going to hear from the brilliance, the love, the care, the tenacity that has moved mountains. But before we do that, there's also just like one more relationship in the room that I want to name, and that is all of you. I'm always kind of in awe of the presence of this unique constellation of people in this room. Like, this will never happen again. And so I just want to ask if you could just take a moment and just say hi to the person in front of you, next to you, behind you. Just fill up this room with your voices, saying hello for a minute.
Hi, Esther. Nice to see you on the Hollywood Squares. Hi. I forget your name. Is it Carol?
Thank you. So I want to invite all of you into the room, the you are today, and also the future you, the you who is becoming. We don't know who all is in the room, our future teachers, our future caregivers, our future advocates and activists, our future policy writers, and maybe even senators. And as you hear this conversation tonight, if there's something that resonates with you, you hear it tomorrow, it haunts you, I invite you to think about how you want to grow that idea up and share it in your own work and your own commitment, because that's really what this is about. I often say in my classrooms that in the telling of stories, we create communities of memory, and that is part of what we are doing here tonight, and we are all part of that community. So that being said, I would like to ask Maya if you would like to start. You could introduce yourself, a little bit about what you want folks to know about you, and where this story begins for you.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Maya Noble. I use she, her pronouns. I'm Black, African American, and I also have many other intersectional identities. I identify as somebody that is in long-term recovery, which is kind of shocking because for a long time I couldn't even get a day, and so I almost have 17 years, so it's always a little shocking. I also identify as somebody who is formerly incarcerated, and something to know about me is that, through a lot of community and folks like being there and showing me that change is possible, I've been able to do a lot of things in my life, starting with getting a GED at 30-something years old, and now I'm working towards a graduate degree, and my life looks a lot different, but I also am not... I know where I came from, and I know what I've had to go through in order to get where I'm at, and then be able to support my daughter, my child, my baby, face some of the same things that I had. It was a really hard experience.
Thank you.
Good evening. It's a real pleasure to be here. My name is Esther Enriquez, and I am a mother, a grandmother. And for many years, I worked in the education field as a teacher for 26 years. And then I realized that there were some kids in foster care that I thought that I could help. And so I switched over to DHS and worked as a social service assistant, providing visitation for children under state care. And so for 17 and a half years, and I just recently retired. But within that, thank you. Within that time frame, I saw so many grandparents having to care for their grandchildren. And then it happened to me. And that was really hard. But, you know, in our culture, we have what we call la ama de casa, which is the heart of the home, the mother. And I had to be strong and let my grandchildren see that we're going to get through this together as a family. And so my goal was to let my grandchildren know that they were going to see their parents and that there would be a future for them and that we were going to get through this. Even though it was going to be really difficult, we all had to work together. And also to encourage my daughter and my son-in-law to know that they were important, very important. The value they have as parents is incredibly strong because that is the piece that's missing for their children. And we cannot fill that void for them. And knowing that, I wanted to let them know that they continue to be important, continue to strive for their goals, and that I saw that since I recently retired, I was going to be able to be there as a support to them and to my grandchildren as well. And becoming involved in FPP was very important because I saw the community, the transition from prison life to community life. There's so much sadly lacking. And this is a very, very important piece to recidivism, to having parents know that their commitment to their children is the most important because our children are our future. And they have to serve as role models. And they're going to be a very important piece of that so that their children can be successful as well as themselves. Thank you.
Carol, would you like to contribute?
Okay. Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Can you guys hear her? I can hear her. Thank you.
Okay. First off, I'm just going to say I don't like doing this kind of stuff. But I am here because my daughter, Nova, my grandson, Marco, my granddaughter, Malik, have the courage to continue to do this work. And through everything we've been through, this is kind of a full circle night for me. The very day Nova was released from prison, we were at Coffee Creek. We live in Corvallis. We were at Coffee Creek. I want to say it was 8 or 9 in the morning. She came home, and we turned right around again and drove to Portland because Brian showed his film in this theater that night. And so, however many years it's been, it's all still so powerful to me to witness my family at our lowest point and where we are now. And I just really appreciate you all being here. I also just will make a quick note that my son, Nova's brother, my daughter-in-law, and 2 of my other grandchildren are here tonight to support us as well, because family really is what it's about, whether they're your biological family or they're the family you create through programs like FPP. I just thank you all for being here, and I'm proud to be able to share what I can. Thank you.
We are so honored to be in your presence, and you know, it's so rare to have the opportunity to have this intergenerational conversation, right? There are 3 generations in this room of impact and also of resistance, and that is so rare, and that's part of what FPP does. And we don't get to embody spaces like that. The learning is intergenerational, the love and the care is. Part of the theme of rupture and repair brought us to this question in dialogue last week of what stories did you have to transform for yourself, your child, your grandchild, your family? Also, what stories do you want to leave for those in the future?
I guess I can go. You know, it's the stories that I had to tell, and that I'm so grateful for FPP, just and for all the stories on the stage tonight. Is just this reminder of that. Is that my daughter wasn't a bad person, you know? She was not a bad person, and through a lot of many different reasons, but a lot of just trauma and growing up with her dad in prison and her mom just very deep in addiction. Like, there was some things that went on where she was not supported and given the things that a child needs, and that when she became older, it started to express itself in different things. But she wasn't a bad person, and you know, and so the story that I had to remind myself was that, first of all, forgiving myself for my own disease, and also just giving her a chance of just being able to show up for her and show her love, and that she's in prison, but she's not there as punishment. And I remember one time somebody said, it's not for punishment, or it's not for punishment. They go to prison as punishment, but not for punishment. And I just had to remind her that she's a good mom, and just to show up and do everything I can to keep that relationship and that connection with my grandson. You know, my grandson was born in prison. You know, I'm in my community, it's like our whole generations of dads are gone, you know, and they're never to be seen again. And this fear of like, this is what's going to start happening in my family. And just resisting that fear and just trying to be like hopeful and trying to, you know, just hold on to the words of Jessica and Heather. Heather's not here, but man, you know how good it was to walk into a space and have somebody smile at you or say something and make you laugh in a situation that was so heavy. And so the story began to change, was that I got hope, is that this didn't have to be the story, you know, even though this was so many stories of the people that we loved, like it didn't have to be this like her story forever, and that it could change. And so those were some of the things.
Esther, can I ask you, in responding to this question, in one of our earlier conversations, you had mentioned that COVID played a real impact in communication. And so the story is also really ruptured when we can't communicate. So if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yes. There was a big disconnect when my daughter was incarcerated. COVID came, and it was a big disconnect, not just between communication between me and my daughter, but also between my daughter and the children. So it was just great when Noe joined FPP and was able to, where they were able to help her connect more and give her support to get the visitations going while she was incarcerated. And so that level of communication was really difficult during that time for the children. For myself, there was so much anger and disappointment that you really have to set aside those differences in order so that it does not impact the children. So that you focused on, at least I focused on them, and trying to repair as well that disruption between family norms and family love. So that was a big piece of it. Luckily, we got that visitations going. Sometimes there was a disconnect in that as well, but it slowly became more smoother until she was released from prison, and then they could have more, I mean, she had physical visitation as well in DHS setting, but then she had more visitation within our home. But then it became more physical, where when she was released out of prison, then she could have more visitation supervised by us and give her more time to bond with the children.
Okay, I'll make this quick. I know we're probably all getting tired. I know I am. So I just wrote down a few comments, and the rupture for me to begin with, and what I needed a safe person, and preferably at that point, it wasn't really a family member. I just needed someone to talk to regarding all of my fear, my anger, how to move forward. I needed help with how best to communicate and support my grandchildren around their fears, anger, and their uncertainty. And I needed know how to find my people, non-judgmental support system, where you don't have to hide what has happened, and the kids and I were able to feel safe and just be us. And the repair came because of FPP. Once FPP became involved in our lives and my daughter made the choice to look inside and change her life, we now had safe people who didn't know me, but they were there to talk, and they didn't judge us. I had better, more frequent and open communication with my daughter, which in turn helped all of us to start to heal. I felt hope for great outcomes, that we would all be okay. And I witnessed the kids connecting with their mom and the love between them, which made everything worth it. And my last comment is just to really remember we use the initials FPP a lot, but it's the Family Preservation Project, and that is what I am eternally grateful for. And Ms. Katz, thank you.
That's beautifully said. Thank you. Maya and Carol, do you want to speak to how FPP has had a role in your life and continues to have a role in your life?
FPP, so one of the things that I'm excited about, and I don't know if this is the answer to the question, but I'm just going to do this plug really quick because I know that there's some people that are involved in some legal stuff or some political stuff, so let's go ahead and do it. Is just the continuation of the support that FPP gives to our families outside, once released. It's like they didn't just release to just, flail in the wind. And one of the things that my daughter was able to do recently was speak to a bill. I need to have that channel, that cartoon, that after-school cartoon that I can't remember if it's a bill or a what?
Schoolhouse Rock.
Yeah. I think it's a bill, right, before it gets to be a law. So, and that proposed bill about the doula, about doulas going into Coffee Creek for pregnant women. My daughter was pregnant when she went in, and when I heard Marco talk about this just absolutely not knowing anything. And when you said that, it hit my heart. I knew nothing. I knew that my daughter was pregnant and had nothing. I didn't know what birth was gonna look like or anything else. And this idea that this bill is out there, that these women or folks that are pregnant will have an opportunity to have a doula, a person who will look out for their well-being, especially Black women who have so many high disparities during labor and pregnancy anyways. I just think this is so important. And so what this does for me is FPP is she's been out for a few years now, but we still have this relationship. I still get to see, families stay together, kids grow up, continue to advocate for bills and laws to make change. And so that's one of the things that I'm really excited about with FPP is it's a continuation after release. It wasn't just, at the gate by, which I thought was gonna happen. And I just appreciate that continued support.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to be a part of this panel and helping FPP moms. When Noe brought me into it, You know, I'm so proud of her because she was helping other moms, you know, and they become valuable to each other as a support system. And she was doing that, and that shows the value that you have as an individual. You can really make an impact, and she's doing that. And I was able to help with one of the moms at one point, and it also serves as a support for my daughter. You know, there's some things that she went through she can't talk to me about, but she has the FPP moms to share things with. And like everyone shared tonight, they give support to each other. And that's really, really important. And I'm glad for that she has that outlet. But I'm also glad that I can now am bonding with her, doing different activities. So, you know, and, you know, I've always shared with my daughter, you know, form healthy habits, which we've now been walking together and bonding during that time. I make my grandchildren go along, and so we're all bonding as a family, you know, so that healthy habits promote, you know, healthy future for our children. But also I want to say that FPP is really important because I see them making that next step to the legal process, you know, the post-incarceration life, you know, that we want to, you know, we want to help parents coming out of incarceration to being released back into the community and helping them to be stronger, more independent people, so that they, in turn, like I've seen so many moms saying, hey, I'm going to college, I'm getting these jobs, and the children as well, the teenagers saying, like, you know, just because we're not, just because our parents were incarcerated, that doesn't mean we're gonna do it, you know, like the statistics show. So, you know, seeing that is a very heartwarming, it gives me a sense of well-being, it gives our families a sense of well-being, as well as, you know, our parents that are being, that are working towards a more successful future for their families. Thank you.
I'll just make couple quick comments. I think one of the things that really continues to stand out for me is the strength that it's given not just my grandkids, but when Nova was incarcerated, as you saw in the film, you know, we saw sitting up here tonight, there's Celine and Sophia, Malik, who were all young girls. Celine a little bit, I think, a little bit older than the other two, but watching them all come from being insecure and so needing their moms, and because of FPP, they're sitting on this stage today speaking their voices. And it just always makes me think of, it's something that I've had on my computer for a very long time, which is one person can make a difference. That's right.
In the very beginning of the night, Nova got up here and shared a quote, and I apologize, I don't remember who said the quote, but it was something to the extent of those in proximity to the problems are the best suited to create the solutions, but they are the most distanced from the power. Within this organization, I've never ever in my life seen an organization like this, that's cultivating leaders, that's transforming the story, that's working on every level of possibility to prove that love can still win. The biggest, most impenetrable institutions can still be transformed with love. And that's part of the work that we are all doing here tonight. A few weeks ago, Maya mentioned in a conversation to me that there also needs to be some mention for the moms that don't have access, right? I think you kind of spoke a little bit to like the privilege you felt that like, oh, these are like the kind of aspect of like a blessing that maybe isn't extended to everybody. So I also just want to name the voices that are not in this room so that we can build to include more voices as we move forward. And I am going to ask everybody just to get up for a second and give these incredible mothers a round of applause. and yourselves